First of all, Terry, just tell us, for anybody who might be unaware, just of Texon, just tell us what you guys do, what the company is, that sort of thing.
It's what they call energy midstream company. We're really kind of an asset light company, more of a niche marketing of various commodities. We do diesel, biodiesel, gasoline, crude, condensates, propane, and probably butane. Oh my goodness, our biggest product's butane. So I forgot that one. So anyway, we just do a lot of marketing in Canada and the U.S.
Okay. So if there's anything that stands out, as Trey has already introduced, and probably other people know by personal experience and reputation, if there's anything that sort of represents Terry Looper as a businessman, it is that your personal relationship with Jesus Christ is at the center of your life and your work. You really bridge that gap. So why don't you start by just telling us about that part of your life? When did that journey begin, and how do you want to invite us into your world that way?
Oh, I first started working for Monsanto for 10 years as a chemical company, and then I helped a man start a business, and through that, it was my chance to finally make a lot of money, which was, I found out later, was my false God, but my real God, even though I'd been a deacon and very active in my church. I started getting dizzy while I was working for them, and then went to the doctor, and he said it was stress, and he wouldn't give me anything for it. Then I started getting where my brain was fuzzy, and I got to where I couldn't think very well on big decisions, and then I got to where I couldn't think for little decisions. And we were having a lot of success at the company at the time, and we're right in the middle of selling it to Transco, the company that some of you, no, half of it to Enron, actually, the first half. So, but in the middle of that, on a Saturday morning, my brain shut down. I don't know how to explain it. I could still function, but my brain was totally unwilling to kick in gear. So my wife took me to our bedroom, shut the door, shut the curtains, and left me alone. And all I knew to do was really cry and ask the Lord to take control of my life, because clearly I thought I'd had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know what was going on with me. And I clearly had not done very well in running my life. That led to me being born again. I was getting ready to be an elder. I was already a deacon, very active in my church, and clearly thought I was a Christian, but I found out as I reflected upon it over the years since that I really kind of had a relationship with the Lord, kind of like a 6-year-old does with Santa Claus. I mean, if you're middle class, upper middle class, you kind of get what you want from Santa Claus. And so I was thinking, okay, I kind of had it backwards, where I was kind of playing God instead of letting him play God. Anyway, out of that, I did a bunch of therapy, found out why I was such a huge people pleaser, probably more than anybody in this room's ever been. And I was overachiever, trying to catch my false God. Another reason I kind of crashed was I caught my false God when we sold the company to Northern, then became Enron, then we sold the other half to Transco. But anyway, so that launched me from being a terrible manager, a terrible husband, a terrible father, pretty good at business, and making deals. But I was bad in all kinds of ways. And so that launched the change in me with the Holy Spirit and Jesus, and a little kickstart with therapy. And then we started Texon 3.5 years later, or I did, with some of the money that I'd got from that company.
So the name of your book, Sacred Pace, is in contrast to Crazy Pace.
Yeah, it's the post. There's a little pre in there too, but it's it's a big change. Yeah. Like I can't even begin to describe the gulf of where I was versus where I am, and yet where I am still a journey of dying to self a lot.
And one of the ways that you talk to men about is how they handle their, what you call major gift. And if their a red line is above, if their major gift is above the red line.
Right.
And that's one of the things you talk about a lot. And you talk about a joy factor in the work, we're 80% minimum in joy for our effectiveness. So can we talk about both those two things one at a time?
Sure.
Let's go red line above the major gift.
Usually when I'm mentoring somebody, I've got a whiteboard so I can better explain this on the red line, like a car redlining. But we all have got a different level of gifts. You know, some of your gifts are better than other ones of your gifts, and so we all pretty much have one gift that's our best gift. And what we usually do out of insecurities, whatever, overachievement, whatever, we usually, in those gifts, I kind of do a bar chart. If you think of a bar chart of the levels of each gift, one gift's this high, another one's this high, another one's this high, maybe one's this high. But those are all God-given gifts and the purest of it all. And so what I do, and sometimes others do, is out of our own insecurity or whatever, is I redline the very best gift because that's the one you shine the most at. So if you're going to impress people or want to achieve a lot, then if this level's my best gift, and then I redline the amount above it, and that's where the stress and starts and adds to your life. Also, poor relationships, poor manager, on and on and on. So just as you think about when you're driven, you know, like I had one young man talk to me and says, "Hey, well, that's my calling, man." I said, it's God's given you that to that level, but then you go redlining and tell me about how well that works. And yeah, you might make a few more shekels, but it really doesn't work. It's taking like an accountant versus a peddler. Those are kind of the two extremes. And organizational skills, you know, operation skills, leadership skills, whatever. So that those are kind of inherently in God, and you can develop them, you know, well. But that's what you need to. The other part of his question was, I believe you need to take your best gifts and focus on trying to make sure, if you're not an accountant, don't be in accounting. Don't do a bunch of numbers don't do somebody else's job. If you're a leader or a peddler, do the peddling, and if that's what I call myself, a peddler. But is I want you to figure out what your best gifts are, and the way you do that, I had one. Let me first say, God made your gifts and your joy one of the same. He could have made them opposite, right? So he made them one of the same. So when you're under stress, look and see which, what are you wanting to slide to? What when you're under a bunch of stress, what do you want to not be doing, and what do you want to be doing? Well, what do you want to be doing is your giftedness, and that's where you need to get. And I want you to get up to 80%. And it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, I'm one piece of the puzzle, and I've got one major gift, and it's hooked with people around me that have major gifts different than mine. And I need to not rob them of their gift. But the main reason I tell you all this story is we delude ourselves if we're down to only being able to spend 50% of our time in our major gift. I contend that you have gone into a passive, ineffective role in your major gift, because of this other 50%. It's like the crying baby that just overwhelms you, and it overwhelms you so much that you then don't get around to doing what you're gifted at. So I'll give you an example. I was mentoring a guy the other day, and he's got a new consulting business. It's about a year old, you know, barely making ends meet. And so I said, what percent of the time are you doing your giftedness? And he thought about it a minute. And I said, well, what is your giftedness? He said, well, I love calling on new people and trying to hustle up business. And I said, so what percent are you? He said, oh, 50%. I said, let me take a stab at this. You got probably 2, maybe 3% pretty potential juicy accounts that you hadn't called on? He said, he stopped for a while. He said, yeah, they're actually reaching out to me. I said, that's my point. You're so overwhelmed with trying to do everything. And I say, your wife's currently unemployed. Your adult daughter's underemployed. I said, get them to help you to get to where they're gifted and you're not, so you can want to go see those people and get business and go. So it's really, really important. I talked to a man, actually texting him this morning about a year ago. He wanted me to mentor him, and he was thinking about selling his business. He's miserable. And I said, what percentage of the time are you in your giftedness? He said, oh, probably 35%. I said, well, you can't sell it till you get it up to 60, 70% minimum, and then see if you like it. So I hadn't talked to him, and I talked to him once. He got it to 60. I said, all right, keep going. Let me know when you get on up there. And he could afford to hire people, delegate, all those things. So they were making good money. So I texted him this morning. I said, what percent are you up to now, and are you going to sell? He said, I'm up to 85% and having a ball. The Lord wants you to have joy and fun, and the fruit of the Spirit is the first four: love, joy, peace, and patience. Who doesn't want more of that? Well, you got to work at it. You got to work at it. He's not Santa Claus. If you learn anything today, he is not Santa Claus. He is amazing God that loves you more than we'll ever know, but you got to do your part.
And one of the things that you said, Terry, even recently, you mentioned you've gone through some difficulties, but the way you put it is that pain or suffering in your life is a huge gift. Okay?
Right.
That's probably a surprising statement to a lot of people. So would you talk to us about that, and why is suffering a gift, and
Sure.
and how do we walk through the hard stuff we know?
I've talked to my agent and writer about even writing a little book on pain. I couldn't write a whole book on it, but and they said, "Oh, no, you can't. Nobody will read it." They won't even discuss it with me. They said nobody will read it. That means that the Western culture avoid pain. So what I have learned is it's a great tool of the Lord's. It's a great gift to me, and it's basically the only time I grow spiritually and emotionally of any material amount, is because we care too much for ourselves. We don't want to change. We just don't want to change. And the only reason we change, or for me, I'll speak for myself, the only reason I seem to change is, of any material amount, is when I'm in pain, or right after I'm in pain. And I mentioned to Tom recently, I had probably the biggest business crisis in our company ever, and March the 6th, and I got a phone call at night, and they explained the situation. We've worked ourselves through it, and it looks like everything's fine, looks like nothing's going to happen there, but for a few days, it wasn't pretty, and it was several days before I could thank the Lord. But I can tell you today, now March the 6th to today, whatever it is, I feel very, very blessed it happened. I've written well over 40 blessings of it happening, and I'm thankful that it happened. Now, I wasn't thankful for his first day or two, because I really was scrambling, to say the least. But my point kind of is, we're all going to suffer, like you said, Tom. So you might as well embrace it and see what you can learn from it, or and if you choose to dodge it, the Lord will step it up and do the pain again at a higher level, saying, okay, now let me see, okay, you didn't get it last time, let me try this again. And you probably, if you start thinking about it, you see examples of that where you kind of avoid a conversation with your wife, and then you avoid another one, then you avoid another one, and then eventually it's not a very pretty conversation. That's kind of a simpler one that we probably all can relate to in a way. And so one of my friends even said, Terry, I think you seek pain. I said, oh gosh, I hate pain, but I'm going, if I got it, I might as well do something. Do something constructive with it, because out of that, I get to be more joyful
Right.
once I get through it.
So, if you don't mind, so March 6th, you get a call. Oh no, whatever your exclamation was
Right.
at that moment. All right, you said it takes you a day or so to get the pleasure to be thankful. Can you take us through
Probably
the
3 or 4 to
process?
5 days, probably.
So you use the expression, we gotta embrace it. Okay, can you tell us, can you get us down inside your guts a little bit, tell what, how does a guy do that? What does that mean? What do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I, I have never, I may cry on this, but I have never gone through a major pain. Now, I've not lost a kid in, death or that kind of thing. Or people real close to me due to cancer and that kind of thing in terms of family. But I have not had a suffering event, a painful event, that didn't end up blessing me. Not one. And so, you kind of become kind of a creature of habit, going, oh crap, here's another one coming. You go, might as well see what he's got for me. I have not had one suffering. So when you start, like I went and who did I see? A man had cancer. I saw him Sunday afternoon, and he's been really on fire for the Lord and whatever, and he had a little birthday party at his house, and I said, have you started right? And I guess he's had it, 2 or 3 months. And I said, have you started, have you been keeping up with your blessings? He said, no, but I sure know a bunch of them. I said, start journaling them. Start journaling them. My wife, when her dad died and when her mother died separately, there's a little book of 1,000 gifts, and she journaled through all the sickness and the death and the following death, and came up with over 1,000 blessings of each one of those journeys. Now I don't do that and hadn't done that, but I do try to journal my blessings so that my friend, I said, you will be blessed if you start writing them down and thinking about it and reflecting on it.
so it sounds like it's really a kind of the fruit of kind of a conversation with God in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Rather than shaking your fist at him,
Right,
you sort of open the door to him
right.
and say,
And you might start with your fist,
yeah,
but if you keep seeing where he's the God of all love, if you keep realizing how much he loves you, then you start seeing a little glimmer of joy and blessings.
wow. So just moving on. So you've already told us, and it's pretty obvious that your intention is your journey with God in the midst of the real stuff of life. You want that relationship to keep growing deeper, and you're talking about how it works in this way. And one of the expressions that you use is as an indicator of, I guess, progress, is this expression from head to heart.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty important one. And so, could you talk about the way that you move through that,
Sure.
what that means, and how you do that, move from head to heart?
And one or two of these subjects may be in the book. The book I wrote 4 years ago, or published 4 years ago, it's so much that's in my soul. I don't even remember what's in the book anymore and what's not. But so it might be in the book. I don't really remember. But what's in your head won't change you. What's in your heart will. And to get it from head to heart is slow and often takes suffering to get it to actually get in. I'll give you an example. I had 2 verses on my wall in a little study bedroom thing several years ago. And one of the verses was Psalm 42:1. As the deer pants for the water brook, so my soul pants for thee, O God. And I told the Lord, that ain't in my soul. And I would like to pant for you. Then I went through a 2-year rough spiel of my company, this current company, and it clearly was due to my own sin. But coming out of it, and it was very painful. And it was very painful. And coming out of it, I'd been praying that. I'd been praying for 10 years for that verse to get in my soul. 10 years. And I came out of that pain of 2 years and I looked up on the wall and went, that's in my soul. Thank you. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have that in my soul. And so you take a Bible verse, and if you throw a Bible verse kind of like that one or whatever, I can say, well, I've memorized it and I can say it, but am I using it? Am I using it enough to where it starts dripping from head to heart? So it actually starts becoming part of you, and it just starts becoming part of you. If it stays in your head, it doesn't really go anywhere. So anyway, I could obviously talk more and more about it, but it's like I said, a 10-year journey on that one blooming verse. That I was serious. I really wanted it, and it still took 10 years. So I mean, but I feel completely blessed. And so during that 2-year painful season I went through, which I clearly blamed myself, and I was telling my spiritual mentor about, as I reflected back, and all the blessings that had come from it. He goes, well, don't be so arrogant that was your idea. And I said, wow, he changed me a lot. He said, yeah, don't be so sure he didn't set that up. With your own sin, I mean, you fell right into it. I mean, he knew how to feed my sin, ego, whatever, to get me in the trap, to have a lot of pain, to eventually grow.
Okay, and so regarding your employees, we'll start with that one first. One of your principles, I guess, one of your operating values, something that is, love your employees first. All right, that might sound a little foreign to some guys, both from the perspective as employees when they think about their employers, or employer as they think about their employees. Love your employees first might sound strange, so tell us about it.
Well, I'll give you a story of, and if you like this video or the summary of this 11-minute video, ask Tom, and I don't think I've sent it to him yet, but I sent it to a couple guys at the table. It's an 11-minute video. Harvard did a study of public companies, the one that put money first, and compared them to the one that loved employees first, then customers, and then making money last. And they did this study over 11 years, 207 companies did the comparison, and the ones that loved the employees first smoked the ones that put money first. And a couple stats, over the 11 years, the ones that loved employees first, stock rose over 900% versus 75%. The income went up 750% for the ones that loved the employees versus 1% of the others. And I've been blessed because of my crash and burn and burnout to want our mission statement to be the best service provider in our industries he's mentioned. But I tell the employees, and I tell anybody to listen, that's impossible to achieve if we don't first, my management team and I don't first put our employees first, be the best service provider to our employees first and foremost. Before, if I don't do that, there's no way they're going to be able to do that in the market. Yeah. And so out of that, I get a lot of trust. I get a lot of the employees, and my communication consultant tells me I'm not very good at communicating to the employees. A lot of times she said, but don't worry about it. That you get away with murder because they trust you.
So how do you? So one of the questions I heard years ago when I was actually a youth pastor, somebody asked a pretty telling question: do you love the kids that you're called to serve, and do they know You love them.
Yeah.
There's a difference between the two,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do you communicate love first to those who are under your leadership?
Well, a little sidebar to that, I was talking to my spiritual mentor recently, and I said, as I get older, I feel like I probably ought to find ways to maybe share the Lord some more with the employees, which I don't really overtly do that. He said, no, Terry, and this gentleman is a spiritual giant. He said, no, they're God's. They're not yours. You keep loving them, glorifying the Lord in your actions only, and let the Lord and them go from there. So, so that's what I try to do, and it's really a relief to me, actually. And I had two verses here I wanted to share with you, and y'all probably, I may have to put my glasses on. Y'all probably, no, okay, I'll turn it sideways and I can do it. I got it here. I got so old, I got cataracts. These are two verses, and then I'll tell you where they're from. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith that can move mountains, but if I do not have love, I have nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship so I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. So as a leader or manager or employee, that's verses 2 and 3 in the 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. But I just, these two verses have just hit me in the last month, how much I've skipped over them to go read what love is. Man, I only read you 2 of the 3 verses. There's nothing left. I mean, he says, I've reflected on these 2 verses a lot. John and I have both. I mean, it doesn't give any gray. It doesn't give any gray. He doesn't care about all your faith and all. I mean, it's really amazing. So.
Wow. That's amazing. So, just piggybacking on that, one of the other things that's true of the way that you work as a businessman is you said this. You said that when you became generous. So, when you talked a lot about generosity. That when you became generous, you became a better businessman.
True.
Okay.
True.
We'd like to expand on that.
No, I don't want to do that. It's irrelevant the percentage you give. I've been blessed to give half my income away for 25 years this year, but that's not the point of this at all. I don't even really think that has anything to do with anything. It's just where my joy is. But if you get to where you give out of joy and not out of obligation or because you have to, but you give out of joy, what happens is you quit swinging ruthlessly for the fence. I mean, you tame money in your life. I mean, you tame money in your life, and you also don't start hoarding it if you have that tendency. I'll tell you a quick story. I think it probably was in the book, but my daughter wanted a beautiful wedding ever since she was in 6th grade. So she graduated from college, and she wanted to come home and she'd tell me about this beautiful wedding that she'd been saving all these pamphlets and everything for however many years that was, middle school. And I went, oh man, I've got a budget and I have to live with the budget. I can't bend my rules, and she's gonna have her most favorite thing she's been looking forward to. She's gonna have the worst day of her life because I won't let her have the money. It wasn't right to do that. And I went, oh man. So she came home from Texas A&M, and she'd been student teaching up there, and I said, can we, I was scared to death that she was going to have my youngest daughter was going to have a miserable wedding. And so I said, can we pray before we talk about this? She said, oh, sure, Dad. So she prayed, or one of us prayed, I don't remember. She said, oh, by the way, Dad, I forgot to tell you, my fiance and I decided there's no way I can have a joyful wedding with your budget. And so we prayed and we decided, whatever you give me, that's it. And I'm going to tithe 10%. So he'll change my heart. A girl at that age knew that's the only way she was going to have a beautiful wedding is for her to tithe whatever my number was. And so we had to paint things in the garage, because she wanted a fancy dress or whatever. And she had a beautiful wedding into her eyes. So I feel blessed to have a daughter like that.
Absolutely, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Come on, Wayne.
So when you talked about that 80% doing what God gifts you with, right? So a lot of us we may have reached certain levels of success doing things that maybe not in our giftings. What do you suggest to make that transition if you feel like, I know I'm great at something, but I'm okay at this thing? How do you shift?
I have probably more detail, but you just got to get conviction because you're leaving so much talent undone, so much joy. I mean, he really aligns your very best gift with joy, the most joy. And so you're just cutting yourself short in success and joy, and therefore more peace and time for the family, less anxiety of pushing the rope a little bit. It is just true as rain, man. I'm telling you, just keep trying to figure it out. I mean, one of my hardest kind of employees are the ones that think they're gifted at this, but they're really gifted at that, because you can't reason with them, and then, it is what it is.
Sure, what would you recommend as first steps of identifying that red line gift or that top gift?
How to identify your major gift.
Well, what I told a vice president of my company that didn't really know, I said, when you get under stress, what do you want to do? That's it. That's it. So figure out how to gravitate. I mean, I'm so not administrative oriented. It's and if you start giving me that stuff, man, it just doesn't. I mean, it's just no joy at all.
So when you got that call part 6, you didn't want to bust out a spreadsheet?
No.
What you do under stress, that's pretty good. It's an on-the-fly marker. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe one or two more? Ready? Yeah, right there. Come on.
I just wanted to, my name's Josh. I wanted to thank you for coming here today and sharing. I was thinking about how you kind of opened, where you were talking about, you got to that point to where your brain wasn't working and you didn't know what was going on. That helped me. And I think that is what I needed to hear today, because I lost my daughter to suicide in October of 2021, and that happened to me. It was a physical thing, not just a mental thing.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I was alone. My wife was there with me the whole time. It was my daughter from a previous. But I was so scared that something like the wires got crossed and I couldn't get it back. But now, looking back, I realized that if anything positive came out of that, it was definitely the changes after that.
In you, changes
yeah,
in you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been a better father. I've been a better father in the sense that, take your time with your kids. We have 2 younger kids, and the things I missed with my older daughters, because I was just working and chasing money and, into self, it's just made me realize that there's a lot to be grateful for in the moment. And the way you framed this whole thing kind of really just helped me identify
Well, good.
with what happened to me.
Thank you.
And coming out of that. So I almost didn't come. I was coming from the Woodlands and it started raining. And I was like, I can call Jason and tell him that I couldn't get out there. But I
Well,
went
thank you for
anyway, and I'm
coming.
glad that I came.
And
Thank
you and I both know, you and I both know there's no one sadder of that event than God and Jesus. No one sadder. And yet, since it happened, he blessed you with a lot of good things. And so I'm thankful that you have witnessed that and have grown from it and been blessed from something that's tragic that God would never want. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. And Terry, thank you. I think we're about to the end of our time. I'm going to invite Kurt Nondorf to come up and close down. Kurt is our point man here at Toolbox Downtown, but how about a big thank you to Terry?
Yeah.